Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you and we can see you, Alan.
Okay, good deal. I have to switch my settings every time I jump on a different video setting thing.
And Mr. Cobb, good morning. I'm Beth Masters. I'm the court reporter. Since we're swearing you in remotely, my notary requires that I ask you for a photo ID. Do you have one handy, please?
Yeah. Sorry, I don't know where my camera is.
That's okay. You're good. All right, I have it. Thank you, sir. All right, is everyone ready to begin?
John, you're on mute.
Even better, yes.
Okay, very good. Will all counsel state their name and agreement on the record that I may swear in the witness remotely?
John Phillips for Omarosa, Manigault, Newman, and yes, we stipulate that you can swear in the witness remotely.
And Ryan Stonerock on behalf of claimant, and we agree as well.
Mr. Cobb, if you'll please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Good morning.
Morning. Sorry for the delay. That was my problem on Eastern versus Central time.
No problem. Happens all the time. We got the West Coaster over there too that had to get up even earlier. So
Yeah.
I appreciate y'all accommodating us. Would you please state your full name for the record?
Alan Cobb.
Mr. Cobb, my name is John Phillips. I represent Omarosa, Manigault, Newman. Are you familiar with Omarosa?
Yeah.
Okay. And this is the Alan Cobb that once worked for Donald J. Trump for President Inc., I assume.
Correct.
Okay. So we have the right person. When was the last time you had your deposition taken?
I honestly don't know if I ever have.
Okay, fair enough. So I'm going to give you just kind of our ground rules for purposes of today. This isn't a normal conversation because obviously you've sworn to tell the truth. And so unlike normal conversation, we got to officially take turns. We can short circuit this in layman's conversation where I kind of anticipate what you're saying, you anticipate what I'm saying. That's a big no-no in a deposition. Secondly, because you've sworn to tell the truth, if you're speculating, if you're guessing, let us know that you're not quite sure on those facts because we want to be clear on the record. For that reason, uh-huhs and uh-uhs don't quite come out. We are on video, and this is the universal sign for yes, and most people go uh-huh. But it's one of those little things that the judges shake their finger at. It's we're not clear sometimes. And finally, if you need to take a break for any reason, let us know. This isn't going to be a big marathon day, I don't think. If you don't understand anything that I've asked, let me know. It's absolutely crucial that you understand because we're going to assume you did if you answer the questions. Is all that fair?
It is fair.
Okay.
Understandable.
Okay. And if like I said, you need a break, you need clarification, just let me know. Otherwise, I'm just going to get started and try to get done. Okay.
Okay.
And don't worry about water. Take as much as you want or coffee or whatever. We're just going to try to, be comfortable and get through this. Where are you currently employed?
I'm employed as the president and CEO of the Kansas Chamber of Commerce.
When were you last employed by Donald J. Trump for President Inc.?
Well, technically it was all contract,
Okay.
but it would have gone through basically the day after the election. And I meant potentially November 30th. I can't recall my exact contract. No, I was month to month, so probably the end of November. November 16.
let me go back. When did you first work for Mr. Trump, Mr. Trump's family, Mr. Trump's campaign, Mr. Trump's administration, any of the above?
Contract with the campaign started March 1, 2015.
What were you contracted to do?
I was the
Vegas to time.
On March 1, 2015, what were you contracted to do?
essentially to help the campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski, in anything and everything he needed with the campaign.
Okay. And when did that contract, or I guess your final contract with all of the parties that I said, Trump campaign, Trump administration, all of that, when was your final day working for Trump?
Objection compound. You can answer if you understand, Alan.
Technically the day after the campaign, and then I also served in the transition team, which technically would have been working for the, I think, the federal government.
Right. Okay. Did you have any appointed or, I guess, non-appointed positions for the federal government thereafter?
I did not.
Okay. At what point do you know, have you reviewed the agreement that Omarosa Manigault Newman signed?
I have.
Okay. Did you sign a similar agreement with the campaign?
I did.
Actually, relevance. You can answer, Alan.
I did.
Okay. And there's going to be objections unless instructed not to answer. Just we're going to, you went to law school. I believe lawyers are going to make their objections. We're going to try to move through. And if we need those to be ruled on by an arbitrator or judge, we'll do that down the road.
I understand.
Did you sign more than one of those agreements?
I do not. Okay.
Alan, you can answer.
I do not believe so.
Okay.
I think it was just one.
Okay. Do you know if it was the same one that Omarosa signed?
I do not.
Okay.
Hang on. I'm going to turn my email off because it's popping emails, and I should have done this before. I'm just closing everything here. It's distracting, and I'm sure I'll have 150 unread emails. Okay. Thanks.
Give me a little bit of your educational background, if you will, please.
Undergraduate from Wichita State University, Bachelor's of General Studies, Master's of Government Administration from the University of Pennsylvania, law degree from Washburn University School of Law.
Have you ever been licensed as a lawyer?
I am currently licensed and have been since 1992.
In what state? Kansas?
Kansas.
Okay. Did you provide any, I guess, legal advice related to the subject NDA?
No.
Okay. Did you provide any edits or revisions of the subject NDA?
I did not.
John, do you mean Omarosa's NDA?
Yes.
No.
Okay.
Did not.
Do you know where it came from?
I do not.
Okay. What was your working relationship for the Koch brothers, the Koch Industries? Tell me about that, please.
Vegas to time. You can answer, Alan.
I worked for Koch Industries at their headquarters in Wichita from 1996 to 99. Then with Americans for Prosperity, which is a private 501c4, and Americans for Prosperity Foundation, which is a C3, which is assumed or reported as part of the Koch network, but there's lots of independent funders. That was from 2004 through gosh, 2012, and then in 2013, 2014, worked for the Freedom Partners Chamber of Commerce.
Okay. I believe it was Michael Cohen. Do you know who Michael Cohen is?
Yes, I know who he is.
Okay. I believe it was Michael Cohen that indicated at some point that the subject NDA, the NDA that Omarosa signed and some others signed, was either adapted from or acquired from one of the Koch business entities. Do you know anything about that?
Objection, lacks foundation, calls for speculation. You can answer, Alan, if you know.
Never heard of that.
Okay.
Speculation whatsoever.
Okay, fair enough. As we sit here today, do you know who would have drafted the subject NDA?
Objection, calls for attorney work product. You can answer, Alan.
I do not know.
Okay. Once the campaign kicked off, Omarosa had some working capacity. Is that a fair statement?
I'm not aware of any of her work with the campaign until July, August 16.
Okay.
Well after I started.
What's a surrogate?
Somebody represents the campaign on typically television shows. I suppose it could be radio or podcast or etc.
Were surrogates of Donald J. Trump for president, also known as the campaign, compensated?
I do
Calls
not
for speculation, lacks foundation. Vegas, the time.
Okay.
Alan, you can answer.
I have no idea.
Okay. What is your first understanding of when Omarosa was brought in to do something for Donald J. Trump for president?
I only became aware of it sometime early July 2016.
Okay. And what was she brought in? Were you involved in recruiting her, bringing her aboard, anything like that?
No, so I don't know what she was doing prior to when I met her, and I don't recall what her role was or what she did.
Okay. What was your first, I guess, and I don't mean personal introduction, but what was your, I guess, as best as you can recall, what's your first understanding or recollection that Omarosa Manigault Newman was going to be affiliated in some way with the campaign or the campaign work?
Probably at the Republican convention when she told me that Paul Manafort had hired her, which in fact was not true.
Oh, wow. Help me understand that. So you ran into her at the RNC and she indicated that Manafort had retained her in what capacity?
In some capacity with coalitions, African American outreach.
Okay. And how did you determine that was untrue?
Rick Gates called me and made sure I knew that there was no truth to that whatsoever.
Okay. Why is that significant?
Objection, calls for speculation, lacks foundation. Vegas of the term significant, misstates his testimony. You can answer, Alan.
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure. I guess of what significance was that to you at the time, that there was this inconsistency about whether or not Omarosa was retained or brought aboard by Paul Manafort?
No objections. Go ahead, Alan.
It exposed her dishonesty.
Okay. So how did that lead to her actually being retained by the campaign?
As I'm recalling, she stayed in touch with me July, August, and I think other folks, and just a decision was made to bring her on in a capacity.
Okay.
In a coalition thing.
Gotcha. I'm going to experiment with Trying to bring up some documents here. I've learned, Mr. Stone Rock. Let's see.
I appreciate that.
Alan Cobb email request. Let's see what this is. Can you see a document on your screen?
I cannot. I don't think
We,
my
we
video
can't
setting.
see it, John.
Okay, let me try this a different way.
I can see something now.
Okay. Do you see an email?
Yes.
Okay.
John,
August-
can you expand that window?
Sure.
I think that might.
Is that better?
Yeah.
And ignore the top part. That's just where it was forwarded to me. But do you recall an email of August 8, 2016 to Omarosa Manigault where you indicated, can you please complete this ASAP? I thought this was already on file since you had done some surrogate work for the campaign.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yes, that's obviously an email from me.
Okay. And acob@donaldtrump.com was your email address at the time?
Correct.
Okay. And again, as of August 8, what was your understanding of surrogates and NDAs? Were surrogates under NDAs?
Objection, compound, calls for speculation, lacks foundation. You can answer if you understand.
Were surrogates under NDAs?
We
Same objections.
we had virtually, as I'm recalling, everybody sign NDAs, not just surrogates.
Okay. Are you aware of who, whose directive that was that everybody should be under an NDA?
Objection, calls for attorney-client communication, calls for attorney work product. Mr. Cobb, you can answer if you know.
I do not. My direction was from Corey Lewandowski, campaign manager.
Okay.
Yeah, for mine.
John, are you going to mark that as an exhibit?
Yeah, we will. We'll mark
Okay.
the first one as a defendant's exhibit 1 to the deposition. This will be defendant's exhibit 2 to the deposition, and I'll provide these to Madam Court Reporter digitally shortly. They'll also be on the video record. This is a second email from Omarosa, again to acob@donaldtrump.com, dated August 24. It appears this is when she sent her signed agreement to you. Does that appear correct?
It appears correct.
And what would you do with it once you receive this?
As I'm recalling, believe I would send those to Lucia.
Okay. Castellano?
Correct, the HR director.
Okay. What was your role with kind of collecting NDAs or making sure they were accomplished? Why were you involved?
Objection, calls for speculation, lacks foundation. You can answer, Alan.
Just for the folks that I was dealing with, that was the only involvement I had. The folks on the campaign, whether it was the primary or post convention.
Would you have been Omarosa's supervisor?
I don't know that Omarosa really had a supervisor. So in campaigns, you don't really have HR reporting trees like you do in other organizations.
Okay. Let's see here. Stop share, go back. Nope. Two, three. Let's try this one. I'm going to present what will be labeled defendant's third exhibit. Let me know when you can see it. Can you see it?
I cannot.
Go back to Zoom and figure out why not. Might have too many windows open. Try that.
Okay, I can see that.
Expanded for you.
Yeah, I can see it.
It appears to be, subject, again, this will be defendants 3. A message from you, subject paperwork, exclamation point, and you say, thanks for being so patient with us. And it appears this is the unsigned version. So this is where you forwarded it to Miss Manigault Newman. Does that sound and look correct?
Sounds and looks correct.
What did you mean? Thanks for being so patient with us.
I tend to believe that sugar goes further than vinegar. And frankly, she had been kind of aggressive on all of this. And we had some internal conversations, as I'm recalling, whether to bring her on in an official capacity. So trying to be nice. We're going to bring her on. Let's set the stage so we're all acting professionally.
Okay. Explain what you mean about, I guess, concerns.
Oh,
Actually misstates his testimony.
Explain what you mean about tell me about the internal conversations you were having.
how there were budget issues, there were issues, concerns that other folks who had dealt with Omarosa that expressed to me how good of a team player she would be, etc. Is she worth the trouble, frankly? And I had not, except for a couple of, and I actually knew exactly what they were talking about, given my interactions with her, where she told me that Manafort had hired her when she had not.
Okay. Had you met her at this point by August 24th?
I met her, first time I met her was in sometime early July at the RNC.
That's
First
right.
time I met her.
Had you met her? Had you been in her presence after that?
Just at the RNC, at the convention.
Whose decision was it to bring Miss Manigault Newman on board?
Vegas to time, call for speculation, last foundation. You can answer if you understand, Alan.
As I'm recalling, several folks just decided, okay, she might be an asset to the campaign. Let's bring her on. I don't know that it was a single person who did it.
Had she been doing surrogate work before August 24, 2016 for the campaign?
I don't know. One thing I was going to mention, which I think is relevant, is, of course, there's lots of people that were Trump supporters out on television, radio, that weren't necessarily affiliated with the campaign. And I don't know if that was what she was doing prior to our official engagement or not.
And just to go back to the prior email. Nope, the one before that. And I thought you were on file, the August 8 email. I thought this was already on file since you had done some surrogate work for the campaign. What was your basis of understanding then that she had done some surrogate work for the campaign?
As I'm recalling, I think some folks said she'd been out on media talking about Donald Trump because of her previous relationship. I'd say that's probably kind of a euphemism. Surrogate can have a lot of not a lot, but a couple different interpretations.
And then this will be, I believe, defendants 4, which is another email dated July 26 from a Cobb at donaldtrump.com to Omarosa. And it's a chain. So we probably need to go down to the bottom of the chain, which would be July.
And John, will this be Exhibit 4?
Yes, Defendants Exhibit 4. From Omarosa to Alan Cobb. Subject start paperwork. Can you let me know when I will get my NDA and paperwork? Also, can you give me an official date for my announcement? I want to get the statement from DJT for the statement. Omarosa. Is this an email sent between you and Omarosa?
It appears to. I can't say I recall that specific email,
Okay.
but yes, that's obviously to me.
And it at least as of July 25th, does it seem that Omarosa was trying to get paperwork from you or the campaign?
Yes, I think a relevance would be the date of the RNC, and I just don't remember those dates, if that coincides with that or not.
And then there appears to be a response the same day. I inquired via email. I will be in New York City tomorrow and can inquire. What are you thinking as to timing next week? Or maybe have something ready based upon what happens at the DNC. Do you recall that email?
I recall it because I'm looking at it. Obviously, it's been a while.
And then the next day, Omarosa, I guess back to you. Any update in my start paperwork? Did you speak to Lucia? And then back to the last segment of this one. I haven't, my meeting's all delayed, will advise. Do you remember anything about this email chain?
I don't remember, maybe the subject, but not the email chain specifically. What are we going to do with Omarosa? What do we, I had been named coalition director and was trying to get some direction from campaign hierarchy about how we're going to structure things.
Okay. Who would you have been conferring with? You indicate I inquired via email, and I'll inquire in New York City. Who would you have been your source of contact on these issues?
As I recall, it would have been Rick Gates.
Okay. And what was Rick Gates' role at the time?
I don't know what his title was. He was kind of Paul Manafort's right-hand man.
Okay. At what point was there a transition between Manafort and Lewandowski?
Well, Manafort was brought on in April to manage the convention and do some of the delegate chase stuff. Corey was let go June. I'm not going to remember the date. And I don't know if Manafort's title changed because his title was kind of chair or something. And titles and campaigns don't mean a lot.
Right.
So for practical purposes, it would have been after Corey was let go in June. And I don't remember that as mid-June, late June, early June, just don't remember.
So by July, certainly of 2016, Corey Lewandowski would not have been the campaign manager for Donald J. Trump for President, Inc.
Correct.
Let's see if I have anything else. Did you and Miss Newman work on any projects together?
I'm recalling that we worked together on Donald Trump's appearance. I was trying to think of the right word, appearance at an African-American church in Detroit.
Okay.
Which would have been Labor Day-ish or Labor Day weekend.
Who was, and
Hey, John, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Do you want him to take a look at this email that you have on the screen?
I was getting there.
Okay.
We'll attach plaintiffs 5, or defendants 5. Who was, and I have some questions about it. Who was Laura Hilger?
I do not remember.
Okay. Who was Abraham Berkowitz?
As I'm recalling, he worked with Brad Parscale on voter data.
Okay. If, I mean, it looks like from the email, well, in the beginning of this email, it's Laura Hilger's identified at sclgroup.cc. Do you know what that is?
I do not.
And at the end, she's got 2 emails. One is cambridgeanalytica.org and the other one is sclgroup.cc. Do you know what Cambridge Analytica is?
Yeah, it was a data firm. That's probably the extent of my knowledge.
Okay. And it appears, it's a 6-page email. It appears that there's some back and forth about African-American outreach and statistics involving, I guess, a simultaneous email to you and Omarosa Manigault, at the time Manigault, now Manigault Newman. Do you recall this, this project, I guess?
Yeah, vaguely, now that I see it, we were simply looking in the battleground states in African-American communities on normal campaign nuts and bolts, engagement, outreach, turnout, and trying to figure out where the African-American community was in the presidential race.
On this aspect of the campaign, did you have any concerns about Ms. Manigault Newman's honesty or integrity?
No.
Can you identify any issue with the campaign other than the Paul Manafort comment where you found, I guess, any impropriety or dishonesty by Ms. Manigault Newman?
I think once she came on, no.
Okay.
John, are you going to ask me more questions about this email? It's a little difficult to focus when you're scrolling through it. And I think
it was just kind of a refresh the recollection, trying to understand who the players were involved. I didn't get, Mr. Cobb, I didn't get a lot of email produced to me by either my client or the campaign involving my client. Do you know how much, I guess, email traffic there would have been between you and Omarosa during the few months she was involved with the campaign?
I don't think a whole lot.
Lax Foundation. I also, John, I hadn't seen that document produced before from your end. I presume you got that from your client. I've never seen that document. It wasn't.
Well, it doesn't really involve the NDA and all of that. It's going to be attached as an exhibit here, and I'll send it to you.
Understood.
Did you have any conversations with Corey Lewandowski about non-disclosure agreements related to the campaign?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Non-disclosure agreements related to what, John?
Campaign.
All I'm recalling is the folks that we got engaged in the various states that Corey was head. Everybody signs an NDA.
Okay. Do you know if the NDA Omarosa signed is well? Let me ask this way: did you have any discussions at the while employed by the campaign about whether essentially the NDA language, the non-disclosure language, is valid?
Lax Foundation calls for a legal conclusion. You can answer if you.
I did not.
I'm going to play a 3-minute clip of Corey Lewandowski talking about the NDAs of the campaign and then after, and then I'll have some questions about it. So bear with me. It's about 3 minutes.
In the AP?
Where we've learned a lot in the last few days and weeks about non-disclosure agreements, both on the Trump campaign, the White House, and political organizations. So first, could you say if you've signed a non-disclosure agreement with the president, number one, and then number two, does the practice of having non-disclosure agreements particularly for people who serve in the administration, but also on the campaign, undermine the credibility of people who serve on the president's behalf, and that they are contractually prohibited from being critical of the president in many of these cases?
So when I joined the campaign, which was January of 2015, I actually signed a non-disclosure agreement, which was with the precursor to the campaign, just for legal, because the campaign didn't even exist at the time. And as I think you all know, I wrote a book, and there was no pushback on the book. And I think my book was a very honest assessment of my time on the campaign trail, good, bad, or indifferent. And I was never contacted by the Trump team or the Trump attorneys who said, you can't write a book, you can't do any of these things. I was very honest. I didn't have to submit my book or proposal or any of those things to them for their review or their consideration. As it relates to a non-disclosure agreement for government employees, and I'm not an attorney, just to be clear, I don't know if they're valid whatsoever, other than the disclosing of classified information, which is a crime in and of itself and has nothing to do with the non-disclosure agreement. I don't know how you hold a public employee, a government employee, accountable to a non-disclosure agreement. I don't know if that's enforceable whatsoever. I have no idea. And I think the issue is it has been a long-term business practice of the Trump administration, the Trump organization, to have non-disclosure agreements, and it's something that they brought to the administration. I don't know who signed them. I don't know who didn't sign them. I've never seen one because I didn't work for the government in any capacity there. But I don't know if they're enforceable. And what I think it is probably the president wanting to bring a business executive experience to the government. And that was one of the things that he brought with him, which was, this is something that I did in the private sector and something I am wanting to implement in the government sector. I just don't know if they're enforceable.
Somebody who signed it is prohibited under a non-disparagement clause from saying anything critical of the president. Doesn't that impeach everything else they say?
And I don't know how enforceable any of them are, to be honest with you. Traditionally, non-disclosure agreements and non-compete agreements are so that you can't steal business from one company and take it to another company, or you have proprietary information as a business owner that would preclude you from going to a competitor. I don't know how you can stop somebody from saying something that they want to say about somebody. Once you leave the employment of that individual, there are some rules that you've chosen to sign on to when you started the employment, but you do have the right to free speech. You do have the right to talk to people. You have the right to publish a book if you want to, or say what you want, or pen an article. I don't know how you can stop that from happening. And the recourse seems to be through arbitration, is what seems to be, because I don't think it's a court issue. I think they go to arbitration and try and find a monetary penalty, which that person would then be responsible for if they were in breach of their non-disclosure agreement. I don't know if that's been successfully used in the past, but we've now seen multiple individuals who've either signed non-disclosure agreements and broken them or completely disregarded them. And so we'll see what the enforcement mechanism is.
Related to that conversation, I mean, is there anything that refreshes your recollection about any conversations you had with Corey Lewandowski about the agreements, non-disclosure agreements, non-disparage agreements related to the Trump campaign?
It does not. I'm not recalling having any of those conversations with Corey.
Okay.
John, do you know the date of that clip?
It's in our motion. I can pull it for you. It was in our original. It's been cited throughout, but I'll get it for you. Mr. Lewandowski talks about pushback, and said he wrote a book, and he's never had any of the Trump lawyers, government lawyers, or Trump, Team Trump, come after him or say anything. Is that your experience as well? Have you had anybody try to enforce your NDA or non-disparage agreement?
Objection, relevance, calls for speculation, lacks foundation, calls for a legal conclusion, calls for attorney-client privilege communications and attorney work product. You can answer, Mr. Cobb, if you know.
I haven't, but I haven't violated it.
Okay. And given you indicate you haven't violated it, what's your understanding of the non-disparagement provision that you signed?
Objection, calls for a legal conclusion. If you want to ask him about the non-disparagement provision in Ms. Manigault-Newman's agreement, go ahead. His agreement's not even in front of us. It has no relevance to this case. So I'm not sure where you're going with this, John.
Do you know whether your non-disparage agreement is different from the one Omarosa Manigault-Newman signed?
Objection, asking you to. You can answer again.
I do not, but have no reason to believe it's different.
Okay. Assuming if you will, that it's the same. What is your understanding of Corey Lewandowski was talking about kind of trying to figure out where the line is and where it's enforceable. And I guess that's what I'm trying to understand for somebody that actually presented this to Omarosa Manigault-Newman to sign, what your understanding, and as somebody who signed it themselves, what's your understanding of the non-disparage provisions that you were bound by and you were attempting to get her to be bound by?
Objection, compound, calls for a legal conclusion. You can answer if you understand the question.
Don't say bad stuff.
Okay. Does that include Donald Trump as president of the United States?
Objection, incomplete hypothetical, calls for speculation, lacks foundation, calls for a legal conclusion, vague and ambiguous. You can answer if you understand the question.
I think it would.
Okay. And there's also a term in there about confidential information. Are you familiar with that?
Generally.
Okay. Have you been involved with any, I guess, were you personally involved in any corrections or reprimands of anybody or seeking to enforce any of these terms? Were you individually, on behalf of the campaign, went to somebody and said, you're getting close to the line here, either in violating confidential information or non-disparage?
Objection, calls for attorney-client communications and attorney work product privileged information. You can answer.
No, not that I'm recalling.
How, I mean, you said don't say bad stuff. Is it don't say bad stuff that's untruthful, or don't say bad stuff regardless about the people referenced in the agreement?
Calls for a legal conclusion, incomplete hypothetical, lacks foundation. You can answer if you understand the question, Mr. Cobb.
I think it's pretty clear. Don't say bad stuff, period.
Okay. Or what?
Objection, incomplete hypothetical, calls for a legal conclusion, vague and ambiguous, lacks foundation. You can answer, Mr. Cobb, if you understand.
Then it causes a violation of the agreement.
as we sit here today, and obviously you haven't been with the campaign in a while, so I expect I know this answer, but do you know how the campaign was damaged by Omarosa Manigault Newman?
Calls for legal conclusion, calls for attorney work product privilege information, calls for expert testimony, incomplete hypothetical. You can answer if you understand.
I think some of her outrageous comments on some of the national TV shows certainly could be considered damaging.
Okay, like what?
I don't have the transcript.
Same objections.
I don't have the transcript in front of me, but said seems to be lots and lots on our book tour, lots and lots of there's no other way to classify it, negative things about Donald Trump. And I'm not recalling now about family, et cetera, but certainly Donald Trump.
Does it matter if those negative things are truthful or not?
Calls for a legal conclusion, incomplete hypothetical, lacks foundation. You can answer if you have an opinion, Mr. Cobb.
In my opinion, no, it does not.
Have you given speeches?
I give a lot of them.
Objection.
Sorry, you're right. You're right.
Speeches.
Of course he has. Have you given speeches since leaving the Trump campaign about your time on the Trump campaign?
Not specifically, because as a president of the chamber, talk about Kansas economy, et cetera. I'm almost always asked a question about it.
Okay. Do you recall in a speech joking about whether or not Donald Trump could write his own speeches?
I do not recall anything like that.
Okay. Did you write some of Donald Trump's speeches?
The announcement speech, Corey and I, and probably others.
Objection. Hang on one second. John, what's the relevance of this question? Because you're getting into confidential campaign issues that, in my view, frankly, have nothing to do with this case. And if you can articulate for me how this is relevant to the case at all, then maybe I'll let him answer it. Otherwise, I'm going to have to instruct him not to answer.
I mean, I've got a 45-minute clip. I'm trying to not necessarily go through. Let's see. Do you recall speaking? Let me find it here. Do you recall speaking before the Wichita Pachyderm Club?
I do.
Okay. Do you recall saying anything negative about Donald Trump in that speech?
I do not.
If you did, would you feel that you were in breach of the agreement you signed?
Objection. Misstates his testimony. Calls for a legal conclusion. Incomplete hypothetical. Also irrelevant to this case.
You can answer.
Repeat the question.
Yeah, I asked if you recalled giving that speech. You said you did. And I said, do you recall giving anything negative? And you said you didn't. And I said, if you did, would you have been in breach of the agreement?
Objection. Calls for legal conclusion. Incomplete hypothetical. Totally irrelevant to this case. Mr. Cobb, you can answer if you understand.
I guess I'm not understanding the relevance.
Selective enforcement. Selective enforcement is the relevance. Isn't it true that Donald Trump commonly selectively enforces this agreement?
Objection calls for speculation, lacks foundation, vague and ambiguous as to selectively enforce, incomplete hypothetical. You can answer if you understand, Alan.
I have no idea.
Okay. Do you know of others where this agreement has been enforced? Have you been involved in any other cases?
I have not.
Would it, so let's take, for example, the Access Hollywood incident. Donald Trump's walking around with Billy Bush. Recording is made where Donald Trump says, "I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything, grab them by the pussy. You can do anything." Excuse my language there. So is it your understanding under the agreement, somebody couldn't have somebody who signed the agreement couldn't have that conversation, couldn't talk about that?
Objection calls for legal conclusion, incomplete hypothetical, lacks foundation. You can answer if you understand the question, Mr. Cobb. I think he's frozen.
Ryan.
Okay, you're back, Alan. Your video
Yeah, I'm
was
sorry. I'm getting an internet connection unstable, which I'm showing I have plenty of strength on my home Wi-Fi. I think conversations are vastly different than being in a public forum of some kind.
Why so?
objection calls for a legal conclusion, incomplete hypothetical. You can answer if you understand it, Alan.
It's very clear they're just different.
Are they different under the agreement?
Objection calls for legal conclusion, incomplete hypothetical. You can answer if you understand.
I'd have to have the agreement in front of me and look at each word, each of the clauses of the agreement.
Wondering if I can enable you to scroll. Can you scroll? Probably not.
No.
John, there is a way you can do it.
I think I saw it when I started.
So Alan, if you go under view options at the top of your screen,
Yep.
and go down to request remote control, I think if you do that, it would allow.
Oh, I can do it. Give mouse keyboard control to Alan Cobb.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, great. Now my mouse is. Let's see.
See if we can get back here.
It says I'm controlling your screen.
I'm trying to get back to Zoom, so we're. Let me stop shit. Let me start over for a second. There.
John, can we take a break for just 2 minutes?
Yeah, we've gone an hour. Let's take 5.
Okay, great.
Hmm.
That's a very odd visual on the screen right now.
And I think my audio is on, but I'm not seeing a button where I can. Oh, here we go. My video should be turned back on.
Trying to pull up email.
I think that might have to do with your internet connection, Alan. The fact that, are you guys seeing a frozen, distorted picture of the agreement on the screen?
I am.
Yeah, me too.
Well, sharing is paused, so let me see if I can resume share. I can back out. Let me just stop share. Do this one more time. Are we back on? Beth, are you back?
I am back. We are back on the record.
Let me close my door. All righty. Start share, Dropbox. Is there something allowing you control now, Mr.
Oh.
Cobb?
Hang on. Okay, it says give up remote. Oh yeah, so it looks like it's working.
You got my computer. So if you scroll down, there should be the agreement. And then there's, as you get into, I believe, page 1. So got page 2 is disparagement. Page 1 is confidential information. Let me ask this question. What was your understanding of what was what did the campaign, I mean, were there any conversations you were a part of where the campaign defined or discussed what confidential information was sought to be protected by the subject agreement?
Objection, calls for legal conclusion, calls for attorney-client communications and attorney-client work product information. The document speaks for itself. John, as you know, there is a definition of confidential information in the document. But Alan, if you had any conversations with non-lawyers about the meaning of confidential information, you can testify.
I'm not recalling I had any of those conversations.
Okay. Same question as to the non-disparage language on page 2.
I'm not
Same
recalling. Yeah, I'm not recalling any conversations.
Okay. So where we were before the break was there's a topic at hand involving the President of the United States. And we were trying to distinguish whether somebody who worked for the campaign could talk about it amongst their friends or to a national audience. And you indicated you'd like to review the agreement to determine your answer for that, I believe.
Yeah,
Objection, this states his testimony calls for a legal conclusion. I'm not sure I understand the question, but you can answer if you understand, Alan.
yeah, I think there's something in here that talks about public disclosure or has a definition, but the scrolling is a little clunky. And I'd have to look at it whether it's on the confidential or disparagement or both.
There's a disparagement provision, Alan, if you scroll up.
Oh,
It's paragraph 2, I believe.
okay. Gosh darn it, I'm scrolling too fast.
And I'm just going to object if, calls for a legal conclusion. Document speaks for itself. But if you have an understanding, Alan, you can testify to it.
It does speak for itself, and it says disparage publicly.
Were there any conversations you were involved as to what publicly meant with regard to this agreement?
Objection. Calls for attorney-client privilege communication and attorney work product information. To the extent, Alan, you had any conversations with non-attorneys, you can answer.
I'm not recalling any of those conversations.
Okay. Did you have any discussions with Omarosa Manigault Newman about this agreement? Other than, hey, we need it signed, here it is signed.
Not that I'm recalling.
Did you give any training to anyone at the campaign about this agreement?
Objection, vague and ambiguous is to the term training. You can answer.
There was no training. Again, the words are pretty clear what it means.
Okay. I'm going to sever your ability to control my laptop.
Okay.
Nothing personal. We're just done with that. Bear with me 1 second. Let me ask my associate a question. The problem is we used the break for an actual bathroom break, so we didn't get a chance to chat. So Mr. Cobb, is there anything? So obviously I don't want to know, nor can I know, you know this, about any preparation that you had for this deposition. But what, aside from that, what was your understanding, or what is your understanding of your involvement in this matter? Donald J. Trump for President, Inc. versus Omarosa Manigault Newman.
Calls for a legal conclusion. Calls for speculation, lacks foundation. Calls for attorney-client communications and attorney work product information. Mr. Cobb is a witness in the case. I'm not sure what you're getting at, John. Perhaps you can be a little bit more specific.
Certainly. Well, let me back it this way. Do you expect, if there's a trial of this matter, do you expect to testify?
Same objections. You can answer if you have any expectation, Mr. Cobb.
Put zero thought into that.
Okay. And I guess you were listed as a witness for the plaintiff. And, you know, with that, there was no indicated testimony. And what I'm trying to understand is there anything that you believe you can contribute to defendant's understanding of why you were on a witness list as we sit here today?
Objection. Calls for legal conclusion. Calls for attorney-client communications. Calls for attorney work product information. Calls for speculation. Lacks foundation. You can answer if you have an understanding, Mr. Cobb.
Because I was the one who facilitated the signing of the NDA.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think it means what it means. Just the email, the email correspondence you've already seen, that I was the one who sent it to her and was the one communicating with her that she needs to get this signed.
Okay. Do you know if she was compensated at all by the campaign prior to signing the agreement?
I do not. No.
Bear with me. I'm wrapping up, so I'm just trying to skip over some stuff. We can all go about our days, but there was. Let me go quickly scan one more email to myself, and it'll be my last 5 minutes.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
We'll come back in what, 3 minutes, John?
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right. Beth, are you ready?
On the record.
All right. Let me go through one more email, which I think will be defendant 6.
I think it's 7, John, because the
7.
Lewandowski clip would be 6.
That's right. That's right. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm going to go, let's see, August 5, July 28. I'm going to start at the bottom. And just let me know if you need any context. Some of this doesn't involve you, which is why I didn't have it scanned in, but you become involved at some point. So
Sure.
There's an email which will attach as defendant 7 on Monday, July 18, where it appears Omarosa wrote, "Hi, Lucia. Lucia, I am sending the info you requested, and I am CCing Alan Cobb on all email. He is the contact for this, not Paul's office. Sorry for any confusion. Also, I understand about the urgency of the NDA. Here is my address." Again, on July 18, I guess, do you remember this email? You have an independent recollection?
I do not.
Does this refresh your recollection about any of the material facts therein?
Objection, lacks foundation. Vague as to material facts therein. You can answer if you understand, Mr. Cobb.
That one particular email that's on the screen doesn't refresh my memory in any way.
Okay. Then we move from July 18 to July 28. Who was Jason Miller at the time? Or what was his capacity?
Some spokesperson of some kind, officially on the campaign.
Okay. it appears Mr. Miller wrote Omarosa, want to talk about formalizing your role. And then it's a communication between Omarosa and Jason Miller. Did you get my cell before I am headed to the RNC event? Wanted to reach out. Didn't want to miss your call. Can you talk now? And then Mr. Miller responds back to Omarosa, and I'm about 15 minutes from being able to call, finishing with DJT before he has to leave. And then we go to August 5, from Omarosa to Paul Manafort. Morning, Paul. I had a productive conversation with Jason last week. I'm writing to see who will be processing my paperwork. I was originally connected with Lucia to do my NDA and other paperwork. See below email. Not sure who the new HR person is now. Can you please let me know? Or can you please let me connect? Can you please let me connect me to the proper person? Omarosa. I guess the reason that I bring this is there is some interplay apparently before the campaign involving Paul Manafort. Do you have any knowledge of whether Miss Manigault Newman had a conversation with Mr. Manafort about her involvement with the campaign before the RNC?
Objection calls for speculation, lacks foundation. You can answer if you know, Mr. Cobb.
I'm not aware of any such conversation.
Okay. Do you know whether it did or it didn't happen?
I do not.
Who maintains, did you maintain your email from your time at the campaign?
Objection vague as to time, and also vague and ambiguous as to maintain. You can answer, Mr. Cobb, if you know.
I did not.
Do you know if the campaign has the emails you sent and received while employed by the campaign or contracted by the campaign?
Calls for speculation, lacks foundation. You can answer, Mr. Cobb.
I do not know.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
John,
Yeah.
Can we go off the record for a minute?
Sure.
And Beth, we are going to order a copy of the transcript and also a copy of the video.
Okay.
John, I'd like 30 days once the transcript's complete for Alan to review and make any corrections that same as with Lucia, that he needs to make.
The only problem is it'll fly into some of our other deadlines. But we might need to address that with Arbitrator Brown.
Well, I mean, you can use the transcript in the meantime.
Right. I mean, I guess we could cite it, and if there's an errata, then we'll cross that bridge.
And then what I want, I'm about to notice Omarosa's deposition. And Alan, you don't need to stay on for this if you don't. It's probably actually.
I find it interesting if it's okay.
Yeah. For the 29th, and as far as timing for starting that, I've been up at 7 a.m. for these depots, and I know there's a couple more. Are you okay? I'd like to start that at 9 a.m. Pacific time on the 29th.
The only question about that is it hits us right at lunch. And so let me look. I get it. I joked with Erica with my office that Omarosa is going to insist that she has to do it at 8 a.m. Eastern time just to make you suffer. But of course we're not. but I get it. I'll work with you because, you would do the same for me.
Yeah, and that's that's a depot that could go an extended period of time, right? So, I mean, it's just a matter of, if
I just want her fed. I want her fed before, so we're not doing a 12 and then figuring out, oh, I'm hungry, all that stuff. So we just want.
So if you can just figure that out and get back to me in the next couple of days, that'd be great.
Okay, that sounds great.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Cobb.
Bye, everyone.
Take care.
Bye-bye. And John,
Yes.
I just, do you want me to put my email address here so you can send me the exhibits?
Yes. The good news is I have them already in a Dropbox and I can just drag them over for you.
Great.
Okay,
All
bye,
right.
everyone. Have a nice
All
day.
right.
Bye-bye. Do you see my email address in the chat?
I do. Copy. Can you unravel from a Dropbox? Would that work?
Yes, we can do,
Okay.
we can work with that.
Okay. I'm just going to send you the link to the Dropbox folder and I'll mark which ones were which.
Okay, and can you share with me, and can you also share with the office with info@riley.com? Because if they don't have permission, when I send it into the office, they can't get in the Dropbox.
Yes. Done.
Very, very good.
This was Trump v. Omarosa. All right, so I know what I need to do. Okay. I'm sorry it wasn't terribly interesting, but
Well, that's okay. And one other thing I did want to mention, when you played the clip, did you want me to quote that into the transcript?
please.
The person that was, kind of asking Corey, or,
Reporter, just or unnamed individual. I don't know who.
Okay.
It was a reporter, I think, but let's not label him reporter. Just put unknown individual.
All
He
right.
may be on the. So when I played it that time, did you get the video or just the audio?
I could see the video.
He looked like he was looking at the video. So
Mhm.
the video may identify him. I don't think it does.
Yeah.
But it's from C-SPAN, so it might.
Yeah.
But
I don't think it did. I could see Corey's name, but I couldn't
Right.
see his. And then another thing I will mention is it wasn't really clear, the reporter. I mean, some words just didn't seem to come out clearly.
It's way clearer on the version you'll get.
Okay.
And it, my whole thing was they're selectively enforcing this, and even he was mad at Omarosa for a lie that turned out not to really even be a lie. But it's just, politics aside, I don't know how you can't talk about the president of the United States as a citizen of the United States. But we'll see what the judge says.
Yeah, we'll see what the judge says. And then my last question, whoever's in the room with you, do you want them listed?
Sure. Erica Jackson, ERICA JACKSON. Do you like a middle initial? No.
Is she an attorney?
She is.
Got it. Okay, I think that's it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Have a great day.
Too.